All right, so here's 4 things you got to think about before you build. The first one that you got to think about, obviously, the price. You got to think about the price of the land that you're going to be purchasing. So if you're a developer or an investor, or you want to just do an owner builder, you can. But again, what's the price of the land that you're going to purchase for? But here's 3 other things that a lot of people don't think about either. So the first one is, and I got some notes on this too because I'm building out a performer right now just to double check that I'm not missing anything when it comes down to. So just gonna give you a heads up going through this big old list. And this list is when I actually was the one that kind of messed up. So I have to look at every single item of all my lessons that I kind of went through. And one big thing that you could see is $34,000 just in mortgage. This is how long that property took to finish. Butterfly roof homes, but it was a huge issue, but at the end of the day, I had to get it done, and we did. So when it comes down to it, the 4 major things that a lot of people don't even think about other than the purchase. So you got purchase, you got your local government fees. This is a big one. So on ours, you're gonna have impact fees. We can get a reduction, so $8,000 less, but right now they're $22,000. But because you also have impact fees for wastewater, that's $3,600. Then you've got the connection of the wastewater, a sewer fee they call it. There's that fee. Then you've got another electrical water impact fee. Right there is that's just the meter fee. But then you're also going to have an impact fee again. So all of these right here is $30,000 of fees. It's $15,000 of the build right now that we've got built out. So you got to actually think about, and I'm going line by line by line by line to make sure there's nothing I missed. And you want to get historical data if you've done this before, like I am right now, going through that historical data. So you got to think about the cost. Now you got to think about all your local government fees. Now remember, there's multiple connection fees and impact fees they don't tell you about. So again, and all of them are called impact fees, but they're different categories of impact fees, and you have to actually call, for example, you've got to think about, there's your water, there's your sewer, like where's the poop gonna go, right? And then there's the electrical, how am I gonna get my AC, right? But they all have impact fees and then connection fees. You wanna call specifically them and ask them specifically what is that fee. Now, you also wanna call, typically even on a larger development, because we're doing 108 units, we're finding out, is there any kind of tax abatement that we could potentially get? Is there anything at all that we can get to still make this happen? Because what happens is the government fees are usually anywhere from 12 to 15% of your actual development. That's a huge cost, huge. But if you can get those impact fees decreased in some kind of way, because a lot of times they're not actually going to the infrastructure of the property. It's kind of just like literally the fee to build on your own property, because you're tying into a connection that they already have. And there's a lot more to it because they have to upkeep that. But I just want to let you know, you got to ask specifically your electric company, hey, what's the impact fee and what's your connection fee for the electric company? Water company, what's the impact fee? What's the connection fee? And then you've got your city officials, hey, what's my impact fee? And what is there any other fees that I need to think about for your specific municipality? Now you've got your horizontal studies, okay? So these are the studies that you're going to need before you even break ground. Every development is completely different. If we're only talking about single family homes, okay, so we have a site plan that you have to get done, right? You've got a survey. You're probably gonna have to ask them to stake out that survey, or the site plan specifically. They're staking out the site plan. And then if you haven't been on that site for a while, you're probably gonna have to pay for it again if they don't have the sticks on site. But you wanna make sure that you could do that after or before, because you're gonna have to actually give the individual who's gonna fill your dirt and make sure it's compacted tightly for that individual lot. We're not talking about big developments. We're only talking about one lot right now if you're gonna build on one lot. Bigger developments, again, that's called your horizontal, your infrastructure, getting prep for your infrastructure. What is that? But there's studies, just like if you're doing a development, you've got your, you got to get your topo boundary tree survey. You got to get your geotech. You got to get, that's boring, that's your boring into the ground, right? Your geotech. Then you've got also your ESA 1, ESA 2, this environmental site assessment. And then you're going to have, let's say that you're possibly going to have any kind of animal study done, potentially. Wetland delineations, where if there is any kind of wetlands as well. There's a plethora of different studies that every municipality wants you to have, but also there's like the standard ones in development too. Then you've got your soil test and compactual test. So that's basically your soil. You don't have to do this. A lot of municipalities do not require this, but obviously I recommend you do this because you have to make sure that your soil is compacted to enough that you can actually put a foundation on top of it, period. And it's not going to slide everywhere. So you got to make sure, don't assume, actually just ensure that you're actually making sure, like, hey, how much is it going to cost for us to compact that land? What does that look like? Do we need any kind of fill dirt? Do we need any kind of elevations? What is that? What is that? Right? So you want to make sure that's done. Then you've also got your horizontal work, right? So that goes from, do you have a structure on there? Do you have a lot clearing? Again, cut, fill, compact. Then you've got your fill dirt is a material cost. So you have to figure out what's your material cost, what's your transportation cost, who's going to be there, what is all that. These are little hidden fees that creep up whenever you're doing a new build. And then you've got to make sure that there's a couple items. When you're dealing with a building department, typically they're going to have a pre-build site visit. And they want to make sure that you got your porta potty, that you've got wherever there is any kind of sewer drainage, there is usually a 6-inch peripheral sock that goes through there to make sure no dirt is going inside the infrastructure of the community. And then you've got as well, your silk fencing. Typically you can buy it, your contractor is going to have it, and then you're going to have to dig a trench all around the property, put your silk fencing in. It's basically just literally it's plastic fencing. You know, it's just 2 feet high, if that, or 18 inches, whatever. Make sure it's secure, because any kind of dirt that's going to have as a runoff, that's going to be bad for the community and your neighbors if you have an infill lot or whatever lot you have. So these are items that you got to really think about. Oh, and don't forget your dumpster as well. So you got to have a dumpster on site. This is typically what, before you actually have your inspection, they want to make sure you did, including you want to check for any kind of easements. Did you check with the building department? Did you check with anybody at all to make sure there's no easements on your site? Or call, I think it's 811 you've got to call as well. So these are pretty much the 4 major items right before you getting into the build. You kind of want to double and triple check all of your costs, just make sure that you've got everything on track. And every municipality is a little bit different. So don't assume that you're right. You know, that just double check even before a new development. Just make sure, because I just graduated the Civilian Police Academy, right? And through the Civilian Police Academy here at the city of Lakeland, I realized, like, look, they've got to go by laws, and say every day there's some kind of new thing that comes out. So sometimes it increases the cost. Now, typically in building departments, planning departments, that doesn't happen. That's usually one time a year they'll increase the cost. Now, remember, costs aren't going down. They're only going to increase for right now. Hopefully one day that changes, but for right now in the history of America, it hasn't changed. So anyway, hopefully this helps. If it does, like, share, whatever. But yeah, my name is Franklin Cruz. If you want to check out a ton of case studies that I've worked on, go to trueinvestors.com, trueinvestors.com. Everything I'm working on, I'm just putting on the site. So, all right, bye.